Hi, I'm Nathalie Gordon, and this is how I create.
Welcome to This Is How We Create, a show that digs deeper into the creative life of contemporary artists of color. Discover what feeds their creativity and how they found or are finding their artistic voice. Through these intimate and candid conversations, you'll gain insights into the lives of creative professionals of color that are hard to find anywhere else. Have you ever wondered how some people manage to craft a path towards their dreams and goals, even though they haven't a roadmap to where they want to go? They don't quite know how things will turn out, but they take one step at a time towards that true north. This episode details photographer Nathalie Gordon's story. Much like many of the artists we featured on the show, Nathalie possesses the conviction of purpose that seems to be the common thread to all of the guests that we have had on This Is How We Create. My main takeaway from our conversation is how much Nathalie understands and trusts herself. That trust allows her to be courageous in life, to follow her gut, to create the work that is unique to her, and even to move from one country to another. I've admired Nathalie's work for years now, and I'm so honored to talk with her about what drives her work and her creativity. Born and raised in London, but now based in LA, Nathalie is known as a photographer for her hyper realistic style. Her work is packed with high sheen and edge, yet she's able to maintain a realistic and believable representation of her subjects. Her use of high flash and big gloss keeps you on the edge and keeps you wanting more as her work incorporates human feelings and emotions in a photorealistic way. I love my conversation with Nathalie. I got to pick her brain and I got to ask her all of these questions that I've been putting aside for quite a few years now. Let us start the show and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to This Is How We Create. My name is Martine Severin, and I am so pleased to be chatting with my longtime creative crush, Nathalie Gordon. She doesn't know this. I'm totally embarrassing her. Nathalie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I discovered your work quite by accident. I was going down Instagram and then I saw this really wonderful, bright beauty portfolio come up on my feed. And I was like, who is this person? And lo and behold, it is the Nathalie Gordon. And so I'm so pleased to be chatting with you. I think I've been following you since for a while, for at least 5 years. So this is a treat for me. So I'd love to talk about your childhood. So you grew up in South London. What were you interested in as a child?
Um, so I was interested in everything, literally everything. My mum, she said from very young, she had trouble keeping up with me, and she had trouble finding things for me to do because I just needed to be doing everything all the time, all day long until I slept. So she kind of shipped me off to private school. That was like very early childhood. From there, like when I was at school, like I did everything. I had piano lessons, I had French horn lessons, I wanted to do tap dancing, I wanted to do ballet, I wanted to like I loved art, and I wasn't very good at art as it when if you were to speak to my high school art teacher, she was like, you got great composition, but your technique is just rushed. I was just like, yeah, because I don't have the patience for it. Like I just want it to look great. And like I just want it to like go from pencil to paper in like zero point 0.3 seconds. So but then it was really in high school where I found my love of athletics, and I was running track for since the age of 14 up until 17. So my favorite events were 1 and 200 meters. I did that religiously, like come rain, shine, snow. I remember one day my mom's like, "Where are you going? It's snowing outside." I'm like, "I'm going to the track. Like training is still going ahead. It's not cancelled." And she's like, "You are crazy." So I would train like maybe 4 or 5 times a week. Get on the bus down to the athletics track and then bus home, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. So that's mostly my childhood until I got injured doing athletics, and it was during the time of my A levels, which I think are like SATs over in America. I'm not too sure how that converts, but anyway, they're the exams that you do to get into university. I got injured during that time, and then I had to really think. I was like, okay, well, do I want to become a professional athlete, or should I concentrate on my studies and make sure I have a career in something? And it was also at the time when my coach was like, I need you to dedicate more time. And I was like, I can't. Like, I really struggled with my A levels just because the workload was like so intense. It's like going from doing your exams when you're 16 to like straight into university. That's how intense A levels are. Because when I got to university, I was like, this is a breeze. Like, what the hell? The hardest part of studying was literally doing A levels. I couldn't commit to as many training days. And so then I was just like, well, I've got these injuries that keep coming up. I think I'm just going to have to like quit athletics. And it was the saddest day ever. Even now, I'm like, do I even really love photography? Because I compare it to running track all the time. And I'm like, the passion I had for running track it was like 110% all the time. Photography is 100%. It's not like there's something missing, but I'm still growing within it all and still learning. But I don't know, maybe it's just the endorphins that I got every time I was running. It's just my childhood. There isn't much else to say apart from I loved being outside. Me and my younger brother would always be outside playing and causing mischief most of the time, but not too much where our parents would like have to punish us. So I was very curious and just wanted to try everything. So I just didn't know, like as a child, you're like a sponge, so you're just absorbing everything in, and you just want to see what's out there, see what you gravitate to, and see kind of like what sticks.
So I noticed that on your Instagram you have your stories about cycling. So do you tend to go for long rides or do you just keep it to in and around LA?
I I got my bicycle during the pandemic because I broke two of my toes, and so I couldn't like hike or run or anything. And I was like, I need something that's like low pressure on my feet, but I still want to maintain being active. So I got my bike. She's called Blanche, which I love. I really got into it in 2020. The first kind of ride I did was maybe 3 miles, then 8 miles, and then somehow I did 19 miles, and it went up to 25 miles. And then one day I did 40 miles. And then the Rafa Women's 100 fell on the hottest day of the year in LA. It was like 96 degrees, and that was over by the coast. And it was brutal. But yeah, I rode 100 kilometers, which is 65 miles. I absolutely love it. It feels like I'm a kid again because obviously my mum got us bikes and stuff. So as a kid, you're just riding around the neighborhood. So I really love doing long rides. My favorite is kind of going up and down the coast because there's just so much to see. And as you're riding, I don't want to stop. And then I have to tell myself, well, now you have to stop because you have to get back. You can't just ride until you're exhausted. Like, how are you going to get back? Well, unless I call an Uber, but it's kind of defeats the object of like being out on the bike. So I tend to stick to cycle paths and kind of trails that are for bikes.
You started your career working in production as a production manager in film. Did you think that you wanted to go into the film industry?
I really just wanted to work at MTV. I sent letters probably every week, maybe every 2 weeks. It's funny because I have friends that worked at MTV in the time I wanted to work at MTV, and I was like, none of you replied to me, no one. And so it's like a little in joke. But yeah, I was such a music head that I thought I wanted to become a music video director. I just wanted to be fully immersed in that scene. I was like, well, how do I get there? Like there wasn't anyone that I could speak to as like a mentor, so I had to just figure this all out for myself. So I was like, okay, let me just try working at a production company and see how that industry works, and then kind of decide where to go from there. So I applied to 1,000,001 production companies, mostly to the ones that made all the great music videos so that I could, be on set and do all that stuff. Um, again, no reply. Eventually, one production company, which I ended up working for about 4 years, I think, they said, "Oh yeah, we need a runner. Do you want to come work as a runner?" I was like, "Sure." And they were like, "Well, how are your tea making skills?" I was like, "They're the best." And then I remember in the interview, the producer was just like, "So we have this one director. He's a bit difficult. How would you navigate that situation?" And I literally said, "I have a younger brother." And he burst out laughing. He just took that as, okay, she's got it. She can just handle whatever is thrown at her. So I started off as a runner, and because I was so I absolutely love that environment of just being in that space and seeing how, when you've got all these little ingredients, how it comes together, and then seeing the final commercial being aired on television. It was just something that I just fully kind of went into.
What does a runner do?
Oh, so a runner literally just does all the little odd jobs around the office and on set. So they are like, you have to go and grab the lunches, and you have to send all the show reels out to prospective clients. So like the ad agency. So I'd be running tapes to the agencies. I'd be picking up tapes from the edit suites and the post houses, and kind of just doing what and answering the phones, maybe making the call sheet. You kind of just do whatever people tell you to do in the office. So I don't know what it's called over here. I don't think runners really exist much here because LA is so spread out. But in London, everything's walkable. All the post houses, all the production companies, they're all pretty much in Soho. All the ad agencies, they're all in a concentrated area. So you literally run around the streets of Soho and grab lunch and pick this up and drop this off. And it's like a PA, but you don't have to do anything personal for anyone.
Hmm. And Soho is pretty small at
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
I guess one question I have for you now, you are a commercial photographer. I'm wondering what are some of the skills that you might have learned, or some of the things that you did or learned or observed at that job that you potentially use now in your work?
So for sure, I learned so much about how the producers put their budgets together and the amount of detail that goes into making sure that you've covered all bases, because anything could happen on a shoot. So making sure that you've got enough lighting, making sure that you've got enough assistants, making sure you've ordered enough of everything that you need to in order to deliver what the client is requiring and is paying you for. So definitely the in terms of doing pre-production, I learned so much from working at the production company, because you literally have to think of everything, and it's double what you have to do on a still set when you have video, because there are so many other people involved. So you have to make sure that catering knows how many people are going to be in set, so there's enough lunch for the day, and there's enough like water and snacks. And at the time, a lot of the commercials were shot on film, so you had to make sure that you ordered enough feet of film, because they're going to go through it a lot. And if you turn up to set and there's not enough film, there's no commercial. So I learned a lot, and it was great because I didn't really understand how the film cameras work. So they sent me off to Panavision, which is out in West London. So I got to understand the different types of film, the cameras they use, like how many feet you probably will need per commercial or per music video. It was a whole thing, and it's so interesting to see what goes into making a 30-second commercial. Like, it's not easy.
Whenever I'm on set, the one thing that always comes to mind is when I'm flipping through, say, the workbook, or I'm looking at a photographer's work, and I'm like, that's so easy. I can do that. And then as I'm on set and you have like gaffers that are like putting lights here, there are like two lights outside the window, there is just all of this stuff, and you think, no, you can't do that. You couldn't just like show up and do it. Oh, the hubris.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot. It's crazy. Like I said earlier, it's like having like a bowl of ingredients and then putting it all together, and then at the end of the day, you've got this amazing image or commercial or music video, or whatever it is that you're creating. I love the start and I love the finish. There's bits in the middle I get frustrated over, or I'm just like, oh, can this be over already? But that's a part of the job, and just you need those moments in order for it to kind of come together in the way that it does.
I totally agree. So I heard, or from what I understand, you took photo in school quite accidentally. And you first started really your foray into beauty by photographing, taking photos so that your mom could use in her shop.
Yeah. Yeah, at university, like I knew I wanted to work in the media, but I didn't quite understand because I've got no one in my family that works in the media. None of my friends' parents did. They all pretty much had like blue collar jobs or just their own businesses. So I had no clue. So my degree covered everything. So in my first year, I did film, photography, television, graphic design, and radio. My radio class day one was this is how to use a mini disc player, and I was just like, I already have a mini disc player, can I go? And so I did, but I managed to complete all the assignments and everything. And then photography, it was very challenging. I didn't understand why the numbers on the lens didn't go from 1 to 10. Why are there these weird point numbers, 5.6, 2.8? Okay, you got 11, but all right, cool. What do they mean? Like, how does it work?
And then where's the F? Why what does the F stand for? I
What does an
know.
F stop mean? What are you talking about? This is too hard. My first roll of film, because we could only shoot like I learned to shoot on film. We weren't allowed to use digital cameras. Um, it came out blank, and I was just like, well, that sucks. I just spent all day doing all this stuff, and clearly, I'm not sure what happened. So I got really frustrated with photography, and then when it came around to year two, I missed the deadline for submitting which classes I wanted to do, and the only class left was photography. I was like, this sucks. I don't like this. But the class was smaller in year two, so much more freedom. That's what I kind of like lent into. And then I became obsessed. I absolutely loved it. Like my friends, if they couldn't find me, they knew to just come to the dark room and call my name. And I'd be like, oh, hey, I'm in here. Because that's where I would be. I'd be out like shooting rolls of film and developing it. And it was just the magic of seeing your image come to life from a blank piece of paper to a full image. I still don't get how it works. Like you got a bit of plastic in a camera and then some light hits it and then it captures everything. Like it seems like magic to me. I don't understand the science behind it, but even though we was taught the science behind it at university, I didn't pay attention. I just like the creative bit. It's just like whoosh, yeah, straight over my head. So I learned to shoot on film. I did not like photography. My lecturer was like, "You're not going to become a photographer, are you?" I was like, "Hey, I'll still know. I'm going to become a music video director because I was just obsessed with music videos, and that's what I wanted to be. That's what I wanted to do." Um, and yeah, fast forward to after leaving the production company, my mum was like, "Oh, why don't you come help out in the salon? Like, I can, give you some money just working on reception." And I was just like, because I couldn't find another job at the time. Um, and so I started doing that. And then the owner of the salon decided to kind of just take off one day. And all the locks had been changed. And my mum was outside the salon with clients, couldn't get in. And she called me and she was like, what the hell do we do? Like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, I had no warning, no nothing, couldn't get hold of the owner. And so I said, okay, we'll call the locksmith and just tell them the decorators took the keys and locked you out. So the locksmith came, let us in. I managed to change the telephone number into my company name. I started a company for some random reason, no idea why. Um, then we negotiated a new lease with the landlord and everything. So I helped my mum kind of put that all together. We redecorated, rebranded, and I was like, well, we need some images. And she was just like, oh, we can just get them from the beauty supply. And I was just like, no way. Like, we need our own signature look and style and feel. Like, this is a new day. Like, let's, make it our own. And so she was like, okay. So I'm quite bossy. I boss my mum around quite a lot. And so I was like, okay, like, I'll come up with the idea. This is what we're going to do. And you do these hairstyles. Like, can you do this, this, and this? And she's like, yeah. And then she's like, okay, well, what about makeup and wardrobe? I was like, okay, well, I'll get a makeup artist in. I'll find one. And then we'll just ask the models to, like, bring clothes that fit the theme. So did that a few times. And as I was shooting more and more and more, I had more and more makeup artists saying, hey, like, I really like what you're doing. Can we do something together? And I was like, yeah, sure. I've got all these ideas. And then I had an opportunity to get some more photography kits. So then I bought a macro, 100mm macro lens. And then for some reason, I just started shooting all my beauty on that lens, and then kind of like started going in and in and in with the beauty work, and that's kind of how I fell into shooting lip artwork, which is, I don't know, something I'm obsessed with. I don't know why. I don't know, I just really like it. But yeah, it was my mum's hair salon that kind of led me into doing hair and beauty, and which is what I still do now. So,
I mean, you make it sound so easy, but to do all of that must have taken quite a bit of time. You must be bossy indeed.
yeah, I
But I
mean,
mean that in the best way.
it was very stressful. Like I said earlier, in terms of athletics was 110% and photography is 100%. I'm always trying to get to that 110% with photography. So I was like, well, maybe this is an opportunity to become like a business owner and see how it goes. It was very stressful. There are days where I just spent crying into the laptop going, I don't know what HMRC need from me. HMRC is like the IRS. You have to admit stuff to them. And I was just like, I don't know what this means. How do I do this? How do I submit accounts? How do I do a profit and loss sheet? How do I calculate the assets? And I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to take pictures. But you get through it. And the thing I love about when challenges are thrown at me, I'm like, okay, well, you either succeed or you fail and learn something, but either way, you still win. So I just kind of take that approach to pretty much everything I do. Like, it doesn't always go the way you want it to, but it's always going to turn out for the best at the end. And it sometimes turns out better than you expect it. So,
So do you think that the you back then who was organizing the shoot would be surprised with where you are now? And granted, I know that in terms of living in the US, in LA at that, a place from what I understand, you decided to go to after a visit to Miami. Do you,
yeah.
so do you think that you would be surprised? Or what do you think that you would say about where you are?
Um, that's a hard question, only because I don't tend to look too far into the future because you just never know what's going to happen. So if I was to chuck myself back into me then as like working at the production company, I don't think I would be surprised as to where I am now, because I'm kind of a just see what happens kind of person. I like to just not place too much emphasis on what I expect my life to be or to look like, because that only just ends up in disappointment. And I'm too fragile. I can't handle disappointment. And so if I can eliminate disappointment as much as I can, then I'm going to have a great life no matter what. So just by being open to any and everything, I think by default, I somehow diffuse the amount of disappointment that comes my way.
I think that's so interesting because I'm the opposite. I need to plan everything out. I need to know what my like 5 to 10 year goals are, and then I work backwards. Having said that, I would freak out if I had to suddenly go through and figure out a makeup artist and get models, get people to come in and create a whole set of imagery and figure out the printers so that you could get those imagery on the shop. You know what I mean? Like, it's so interesting because from at least some of the research that I've done on you and the podcast episodes that you've done and your work with the APA and all the panels, I have stalked you. But in the best way. I'm like, this girl is so amazing. And so for me, I had in mind that you had this grand master plan and that you were like figuring out where you were going to go. So hearing you say that is quite interesting to me.
Yeah, there is no master plan. Like, I was in Miami. I was on an assisting job. I was at the time I took the job. I was working as a digital technician which you get paid more as a digital tech than you do as an assistant. But then I was like, 2 weeks in Miami as an assistant? Hell yeah, why not? I didn't really see it as taking a pay cut, but I saw it as an opportunity just to be in Miami for 2 weeks. You know, when you're an assistant, you get to learn so much just on how other photographers do things. And I think that really helped me with my photography because I was always panicking with, okay, well, I always worry about the small things like, how do I do this? How do I get my kit? How do I get my models? How do I get my makeup artists? Getting it, asking people to help is not my problem. It's worrying over how it's going to come together. But then as I've gotten older, I don't worry about how, I just worry about what I need. And so assisting other photographers helped me to kind of visualize what I need for any given situation because I've seen it done before. If I'm shooting on location, I'm like, oh, okay, I need a scrim to, block out some of the sunlight, but I still need to make it look like we're shooting in sunlight. And then if I'm having to do something and I have to freeze motion, then I remember I assisted a drinks photographer who had to freeze liquid with stills. And I was like, okay, cool. So you time the lights with the shutter speed you're using on the camera, and that's how you don't get motion blur. So all those little things that I learned from being an assistant really helped me into kind of where I am now. The whole Miami trip was really weird because I had two friends that were living in Orlando. I hadn't seen them for maybe 2 years. And so I was like, I'm going to be in Miami. I'm going to ask the production company to change my flight so I return on a later date after the shoot. It didn't cost them any extra money, so they were happy to do that. And then I just rented a car and drove from Miami to Orlando. And then somewhere on that journey, I was having the best time ever. I love driving. I love cars, which I have now discovered, like, why am I not doing more car photography? That's another story. But yeah, it was on that drive. I was just like, I need to be here. This is what I need to be doing. But I didn't know, I didn't understand what was going on. I knew I didn't want to live in Florida because I felt like I would be stuck shooting swimwear and weddings, which is not what I enjoy doing. Swimwear's fine. It's just I didn't know how I was going to make money in Florida. So then after that visit, my friend was just like, oh, so when are you going to move to America? And I was just like, I'm not really finished with London. I've still got a lot that I want to do. I just imagined I would live in London forever because it's so easy to travel everywhere, one. And two, everyone just wants to move to London. So why would I leave? I live in the best city in the world. I don't know. I wake up one day and it's probably about a year later this happens. I wake up and it feels like someone's shaking me and they're saying, come on, get up, pack your bags, you're moving to LA. And I was like, all right, cool. I was telling my friends and they're like, you've not been to LA before. I was like, yeah, I know. And they're like, well, so how do you know you're going to move there? I was like, I don't know. That's where I feel like I need to be. I feel like my time in London had come to an end. I felt like I had outgrown London. I mean, I love it. It's still in the summer. It's the best city in the world. Challenge me on that, if you will, but I will stand my ground. Got here on a vacation and had fun, had dinners, had drinks, went out, chilled by the beach, and drove from Santa Monica up to San Francisco along the coast, which is literally the best drive I've ever done in my whole entire life. That was in March, and then by that November, I was here, and I was like, oh, that happened super quick. I didn't really have any friends, didn't have any contacts, didn't have any clients. I was just like, just gonna, figure it out and see how it goes.
For us, we moved from London to Chicago in 3 months. So a little bit like you, we found out in April that my husband got a job in Chicago. By the end of June, our bags were packed.
How are you finding it?
I think it's a really lovely city. They say the same thing as you said about London, that it's the best city in the summer. And for Chicago, they really mean that because otherwise, 9 months out of the year, it's completely cold and,
Yeah, yeah. Which
and
is funny.
dreary.
Yeah.
It's really nice here in the summer. So I really interested in beauty for a long time. And then I discovered your work and I was just really obsessed with the way that you do your own retouching, by the
Oh,
way?
hell no. No, I have a team.
Yeah, it is a thing, retouching,
Yeah.
but just the way you treat skin, also your trajectory in terms of how you've changed over time. Can you tell us a bit about your business and how you structure your business and how you've been able to build up to your client base?
Well, there are a lot of holes and flaws in like what I do, and that's just me mentally being hard on myself. In terms of like how I got into beauty and how I kind of get my business, it's just I just keep shooting what I love and what I love to see. So anything that looks nearly perfect, which is kind of my style, then yeah, I'm gonna keep shooting it and keep working on it. I work really closely with my retouchers. They know my lighting style, they know how I like things, and they know I don't like things too perfect. Like you got to be able to see like some of the hairs on the face. You've got to be able to see the pores in this. I don't ever want to get rid of that, and I don't ever alter someone's shape of their lips. I don't alter their face in any way or their body or anything like that. I don't believe in that. I just like things to look hyper real. So it's real, but it could not be real. I think that's how I would describe it. So yeah, it literally is photographing, taking pictures of as much hair and makeup as I can. Like I come up with mood boards, and then like I really enjoy storytelling. So while sometimes I don't feel like my images tell a story in the way like a documentary image would or a portrait would, I like to create mood boards that kind of have a common theme or something that's inspired by any one of my favorite songs I'm listening to, or just the like things around me that I get inspired by. I will create a mood board and then I'll show it to like hair and makeup and styling team and say, hey, like, do you want to work on this shoot with me? What do you feel? Pull that all together and then just show it to as many people as I can. Put it on my website, put it on my Instagram, and then people call me for work and they want to pay me to do what I'm already doing. I love it.
You just gave us the summary of it, but having moved from another country to a place I hadn't been before, it's very difficult to create traction and to create a network and to get your clients. And I know that over time your clients have changed.
Mhm.
Do you have any tips that you could share for people who are starting out fresh and who are looking to just get their foot in the door by networking or by creating contacts?
So how I did it was when I got here. I mean, the one friend I had, obviously, she had a job and couldn't hang out with me all day. I would go onto Eventbrite and look at all the events in LA, and I would just see which ones that seemed interesting and had free wine. Because wine helps when you're networking. If I didn't have to dip into my savings, then that's a bonus. So I would just go to events and I would just talk to people. I would also use Facebook groups. So there was like a hair makeup photography group for Los Angeles. There's a few of them. So I went on there and I posted some of my existing pictures saying, "Hey, I'm new here, trying to build some teams." Because obviously, when you do test shoots, it helps with understanding how your team works, so that when you have a client, you don't have to worry about anything else. You know that you can trust them to do the job that you want them to do. Even when I do have clients in my downtime, I'm still testing because everyone that I got to know straight away has now become busy. So I have to kind of build a new network of people because my favorites are super busy and sometimes I can get them, sometimes I can't. The Facebook groups really helped because I posted some of my work and was just like, hey, is anyone down to do a test shoot? And the apartment that I have is big enough to like have a small team in. So we would shoot a lot in my apartment because I didn't have the money for the big studios or anything else. We would shoot in my apartment. I was really overwhelmed when I did my first post because I had so many people going, "Oh my God, your work's amazing. I want to shoot with you. I want to shoot with you." And I was just like, I don't know how to manage this. I can't dissect it. So what I did was I just replied back to the people that had messaged me maybe second and third times. If you sent me one message, I probably would have just filtered those people out. If you sent me two messages, I'd probably have got back to you because I'm like, oh, I remember that name. I've seen that name more than once. I mean, like if there's like 90 odd names, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to remember all these names. if out of those 90 names, say like 10 and have messaged me twice, and then you've got three that are like, don't know if you got my last two messages, but I really, really want to work with you. Here's some mood boards, and start a conversation. I still get people who are like, hey, your work's great, I'd love to work with you. I'm like, cool, I know my work's great, but like, like start a conversation, have a conversation with me. Like, I gotta know that we're gonna have fun on set and that I can rely on you and you've got good communication skills. Like, I can't. The worst thing is when I book someone and I'm trying to like organize everything and I've got everything else going on from like the client and everything else. Okay, I need you to be incommunicado with me. Like, can you do the shoot? Can you do it for this rate? Oh, the client has asked for this. Can you do this? Oh, they now don't want that. Are you okay with it? There's a constant communication that happens when you have a good team. You got to be really good at that. If you just send a message to say, hey, I want to work with you, and that's it, I'm like, okay.
First, I want to clarify for the folks who don't know what a test shoot is. Essentially, as a photographer, or even when you're in film movies, you have an idea and then you need to execute the idea, and the test is the execution of the idea. So I'm so pleased that you kept it scrappy. You did test shoots in your apartment. I have to say I did as well. We were having people in and out every
Yeah,
weekend. We would get them test shoots done. So thank you
yeah.
for giving such great examples in terms of how they did that. I know that our time is coming to an end, so I have two questions left for you. One of them is about your style, because you have a very distinct style. It's very colorful. It's, using your words, you have a photorealistic slant to your work. Did your style come with just shooting and you discovered it naturally, or was it something that you cultivated over time? Or maybe it's one and the same. I'm not quite sure.
It's okay. When I got into photography, I I tried so hard to create a style that would stand out, and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I couldn't separate myself from other photographers. I'm a big fan of so many. I didn't know how to create a style. I didn't know how I would be unique from everyone else. I didn't. I couldn't see it, and I really struggled with it. So I was like, all right, forget that. I'm not going to worry about my style. I'm not going to worry about standing out from everyone else. I'm just going to photograph what I love to photograph. That's it, because it was driving me absolutely crazy. My style developed over time because the more and more photo shoots I did was the more and more I was like, I actually really like this. So I kept lighting my models the same way. I discovered that I didn't like soft boxes. I don't really like soft light. I mean, I can do it. I don't enjoy doing it, but my passion is really harsh, crisp, like punchy image. Like, it has to be like full on color, full on brightness. Even when I'm shooting in a kind of dark situation, there's still some element of color or sharpness or vividity. Is that a word? I hope it is, because I just used it. So gotta be vivid. Whilst I tried really hard to like set and create a style from the beginning, I struggled and I couldn't do it. So I just carried on shooting what I thought looked amazing. Everything that you see on my website are images that I love. I don't necessarily put stuff on there that I don't like. And if I have to put something on there, it's because I have to like show clients my range. But the majority of my work is just my favorite images.
Mm. How do you light? What's your go-to lighting, or your go-to lighting setup?
I start with one and then build from there. So I'll always have like a key light, and I'm like, oh, this is the mood I'm trying to create. And then I will put another light in. And for the longest time, I only had two lights because that's all I could afford at the time. And I leased the equipment from, there's this company in the UK called Photo Lease, where you don't necessarily take out a loan for the equipment. It's like how you lease a car. They'll give you the equipment, you pay a monthly payment, and then at the end you have the option to keep or trade it in for newer equipment. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you have it out here, but so I only had two lights because that's all I could afford at the time. And so I made do with having a really strong key light and then a slightly lower range light for the fill, and that kind of helped me create my look and create my style and create my feel. If one light was enough to make everything bright, then great. But if it was too much, I would have to move it to the side or move it up or move it down, or I was just playing around with how I light everything. So even today when I get a client brief that comes in, I literally visualize in my mind, okay, how do I want it to look? And then I'm like, okay, well, I need that light to do this and that light to do that. I'm literally using, you can't see me, but I'm pointing left and right where light generally goes, because I learned that light travels in a straight line. And that's the only way I know how to light. It's because my physics teacher is just like, yeah, light just travels in a straight line. Even when you use a modifier, you're going to use a modifier and that's going to bend the light. It's still going to go in the direction of straight. So
You said you don't use softboxes. What modifiers do you use?
I tend to use silver umbrellas, or sometimes I'll use like a shoot through, like a soft shoot through, or I put up like a mini scrim and shoot through that, just to dampen the intensity of the light. But that's normally on my fill light. It's not my key light. My key light is always something that's silver in there, whether it's a modifier, whether it's a beauty dish, whether it's an umbrella. Technically, it's not an umbrella; it's a brolly, because an umbrella shields you from the rain. But that's just London versus umbrella slang.
I think it's interesting that through a process of elimination, you figure out what your style is. And I think for me, I do not ever use a silver. I nothing with silver on it. I just don't like it, and it's just over time I realized that it's not in my work. Mine is also hazy and it's soft. So I guess that's what makes you you. I mean, it's just so beautiful. And I love the fact we can all be who we are and make kick ass work. So
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
it. I discovered the other art fair through you and through following you. And then I was so pleased to see that your prints are being sold online. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey in terms of how that came about?
That actually came about when I got to LA, because I didn't have any clients, I didn't have a network. I was like, okay, well, how else can I make money? I'm only allowed to work as a photographer and videographer, but so that really, I was in a hotel, I think it was Mama Shelter, and they had these super cool, huge prints. And I don't remember the photographer's name, but he literally would photograph these old classic cars, like jumping up over a ramp, and he'd get underneath, and like these cars were like coming up over a hill. It reminded me of something like out of Starsky and Hutch. He had different prints of these cars, and obviously I'm a big car fan, and I was just like, oh wow, maybe I can turn some of my current work into prints. When I was going through my portfolio, I was like, well, I shoot lips the most, and so I decided, okay, well, how would these look large scale? It's a small part of your body, but how would they look blown up? So that's kind of how I got into producing fine art. There's so much I want to do within that realm, and I just haven't had the time to. But what I have currently is a series of prints that I think I have like 3 collections or 4 collections. It's something that just came about as me thinking, well, I need another avenue or another revenue stream so that I can survive out here. And I had actually been to Wallspace Gallery before I moved out here. It was on that vacation trip my friends took me on. Valda, who runs Wallspace, she's also British. And I was just like, hey, like, I'm thinking about moving out here. And she's like, don't think about it, just do it. And I was like, okay. And then when I got here, I was just like, well, hey, like, I am here and thinking about doing these prints as artwork. What do you think? It wasn't until maybe 3 years later that we actually were able to exchange contracts and to have her rep my artwork. It was a relationship that I built over time, because she thought I needed a rep, and I didn't need a rep at the time, or I knew she wasn't a rep in the same way that how I know a rep to be. She's a gallery owner, so we kept the conversation going. Like, I would always try and go to her events and stuff. And then when I went to Art Basel, I was like, oh, I really could be doing this. This is something I really enjoy doing, because there's no client pressure. I get to curate and put the images together that I like. And yeah, whilst I'm still new into the art scene, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm still trying to find my voice within that space. I did the other art fair as an experiment to see what people's reactions were, and a way of growing and moving forward.
From what I understand, some of the images are of your lips, or
Yeah.
is that? Oh, that's amazing.
So the newest collection I did is called Lost in Nostalgia. I did that because it was during the pandemic. I couldn't really get any models to model for me. Also, I had done an art show in London, and the only print that sold in the whole week that I was exhibiting was my own print. So it was a print of my lips, and I was just like, oh, okay. They didn't even like my favorite print, which is the pink fizzy lips. That's my favorite one. They liked mine over that, and so I was just like, oh, okay, maybe I'm a hot commodity. So let me build on this.
Oh, well, that sounds beautiful, and I think you should build on it. Take over the world.
Hey, here's hoping. Here's trying. Well, not the whole world, because it's too big.
Well, thanks for sharing about that. I feel like how to sell your work could be its own podcast, but we'll leave it there. But thank you so much for on. I've loved chatting with you. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell the folks how they can support you? Because I know your work is on Saatchi, and so they can purchase your artwork directly there. And we could also put the show notes, a link in the show notes.
So yeah, I'm on Saatchi Art, which is if you go into Saatchi Art, you can just search my name. It's Nathalie Gordon. It's spelled with a H. If you forget the H, you're gonna find someone else. That's not me. You can find me there on Instagram, which is just photo Natalie, on my website, nataliegordon.com.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
I love your work. I really admire all that you're doing, and I'm so can't wait to see your star continue to rise.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, I feel like I'm blushing because you're like, I'm such a big fan, and I'm just a normal person. I'm not like a celebrity.